Times were tough, so I sold my soul. And I don't think I'll ever regain control. Devil looked me in the eye, now I look the other way. What else could I do? I just stood at the doorway and knew I'd rather be drunk with you.
Hey Internet, Dracofunk here, and welcome back to my Reusable Space program. I'm going to try and keep this gravy train, I don't know why it's a gravy train, moving. But anyway, we're back here, we're at Enterprise Station, and I'm having some issues with my docking ports that are stuck. And also, this is the episode where I accidentally used my KSP2 scene, and I didn't realize it was recording off-center. I don't know how this happened. I have fixed it for the next episode, which I actually have the next episode all recorded. I may add on to a little bit of it because I didn't quite do as much as I had planned, although I also might not. But anyway, so I was going to use Space Bus 1 to go to the Space Bus 3, but the docking port is stuck. Now, if this happens, there are a couple things you can do. One of them involves editing the save files, but there's a utility called KML that if you install it and open your persistent file for the save, it will detect any stuck docking ports. I apparently had a whole bunch of them. I had only discovered at least 2 of them on my own. The rest I had not yet discovered, and some of them may be station parts that I never intended to take apart anyway, so there's no reason for me to have noticed it. Anyway, instead of using the Space Bus, I am using the Manly to rendezvous with the other Space Bus, since the Space Bus on Enterprise Station has the docking port stuck. Coincidentally, I will also, well, I won't spoil that, but I found some other stuck docking ports, which posed a really big problem. But anyway, I'm using the rendezvous planner to navigate the Manly to Space Bus 3. And this design was based off of Scott Manley's interplanetary starship he designed early in his career. It's not exactly the same anymore. It's more like I took inspiration from it. Back then, the nuclear engines actually required oxidizer, so he had different fuel tanks than this ship does. Since they don't require oxidizer now, those are all just liquid fuel tanks. But the design of this craft is pretty much just inspired from his. I don't think he had his solar panel placement, I think, was flat, where mine is kind of an X. I just think that looks a little bit cooler. I am not as cool as Scott Manley, though. Anyway, I have rendezvoused with the Space Bus, and I am now going to dock towards it. And both craft, I kind of, basically once they got close, I pointed their docking ports at each other and just zeroed out my velocity and just headed right for it. Now, the Space Bus 3 was basically out of fuel. And the Manly wasn't full, but even the Manly has a lot of fuel on it. It has a lot of Delta V. So I'm just transferring fuel around, and it has enough to get back to Enterprise Station. The space bus has enough to get to Enterprise Station. And once there, the whole purpose of that space station mainly is a fuel depot in low Kerbin orbit. And I refill it by mining ore and on the Mun and bringing it to Enterprise Station. I have a fuel tanker. There is a fuel depot also in orbit of Minmus. Now, the mining ship that I had around Minmus had a bit of an accident, and I landed it back on Kerbin, and the Minmus operations have not been very fruitful. I guess I did have an accident on the Mun also, where the only Kerbins I've had die, they were mining when the mining ship overheated and exploded. I don't know exactly why it happened. It was a fluke accident. And we had a funeral. If you look on our page, there is a video called A Kerbal Funeral. It is a memorial to the 2 Kerbals we lost on that mission. But thus far, those have been the only Kerbals I have lost. The other mining ship has been mining, and it does about 2 mining trips to fill up the Columbia Station in orbit of the Mun, as well as filling up the tanker ship that I've named the Canterbury after the ship from the Expanse. And that ship makes a trip from Columbia Station in orbit of the Mun to low Kerbin orbit to Enterprise Station right here. All in all, it takes about 4 trips to fill up Enterprise Station. So, and it takes about 8 mining operations. So 8 mining operations total, because it's 2 mining cycles to fill up the tanker and 4 trips to fill up Enterprise Station. And I do film all of that, but I don't put it out in the videos because it's kind of boring and monotonous, and you've seen me do it multiple times. I have recently been refueling the interplanetary probe that is in orbit of Kerbin. I am eventually going to load up some supplies because I want to build a fuel depot in orbit of Ike. And it is going to take pieces of another space station for that. And I'm going to be launching a lot of infrastructure and craft to go to Duna. I have successfully tested a design for a surface lander, and it will be flying to Duna, I believe, carrying 2 LOX tanks. So there will be 3 launches for that mission. I've also redesigned the tanker. Well, it's not redesigned the tanker. I've designed another tanker to be the fuel transfer craft to go from Ike to Duna, where I will be setting up fuel operations the same as I have on Kerbin, just in Duna orbit. So Space Bus 3 has made it to Enterprise Station. I'm going to dock it to that liquid oxygen tank I launched in the last episode. And I'm going to completely refuel the Space Bus at Enterprise Station. And it will be traveling to Duna. And it's going to bring that liquid oxygen tank with it. Now, as you can see, I have lots of liquid fuel. Well, I don't actually have a lot of liquid fuel on the on Enterprise Station, but I should have enough to completely refuel the Space Bus. And once I get everything refueled, I will go ahead and transfer it to Duna orbit. So here I am now. All right. So now I have everything refueled, and I just put liquid fuel in that LOX tank. And that is so it gives me the extra Delta V, but I'm not carrying oxidizer since I don't need it. Now that I have my encounter, all right, we have an encounter. Well, we don't have the encounter yet, but we are at the transfer point. Now, with that extra tank, you can see I have 4,500 or so Delta V. Now, it had enough probably without the extra tank, but I'm bringing it along because I need to get it there anyway, and it never hurts to have too much. I've never went somewhere and been upset that I had too much Delta V. I have been the other direction where I didn't have enough, which that was a problem. And it takes about 1,100 Delta V to get the Duna encounter. Now, I don't quite have an intercept, but I'm really close, so I just gonna do some fine maneuvering just to get as close as I can. And I really should set up a maneuver and play with it a little more to get a closer approach, but I forgot. I just forgot. Now, I did set up 2 alarms because of the issue we had before where the sphere of influence changed on me through the alarm and I ended up missing Duna. So I set up a manual alarm, and as you can see right there, there was an issue. Oh, nope. I spoke too soon. That's not the issue. That's the first sphere of influence change. I'm now out of curb and sphere of influence. And I am doing a little bit of fine-tuning to get a little bit closer encounter, but it ends up not being very drastic, and I don't get quite as close as I would like. I'm resetting the manual timer, or a manual alarm, as well as the automatic one, just so I have both of them. And if I remember correctly, there was an issue this time. Or maybe not. Yeah, right there. You can see the sphere of influence changed briefly to 1 year. So if I would have relied solely on the automatic one, I would have completely missed my encounter. And now I have come in really low, so I'm basically in a polar orbit. But I have 3,500 delta V. So I have plenty of room to correct this. And I really should have tried to get a much closer approach. But I didn't. So had I actually tried to get a closer approach, I could have made it there without the extra fuel. So I'm going to do a plane change maneuver, and I'm just looking to get along, or at least I'm not going to get perfectly in line, but along with the other craft that I already have in orbit. And speaking of the craft that are in orbit, it's time to go ahead and start thinking about the space station. I need to get it in the orbit I want. So what I'm actually going to do is get it. I want the space station to be in the same plane as Ike. And I'm going to try and get it as close to a 100. Did I settle on a 100 kilometer orbit? I think I settled on a 100 kilometer orbit in the same plane as Ike. Here I'm just circularizing at 100 kilometers. Not quite perfect, but I'm going to get it pretty close. And once I have the station course set, now I can bring the truss. Oh, first I'm going to, now that I have it, the orbit circularized where I want it, I'm going to align the plane so I'm in line with Ike. Because in the end, that'll make it easier to travel from this station to Ike, which will be mainly where we're going. Unless we're going all the way back to Kerbin, which that will require a different plane change anyway. Now the SUV, I just have to do a rendezvous maneuver to bring the truss there, and once that's done, I can place the truss onto the rest of the station, and this station can become fully operational. Unfortunately, that will not happen in this episode. And I'm using the rendezvous planner to help me get to... Right now it's set to the big mining ship. Eventually, though, this will be Discovery Station. Just a few more maneuvers and I'm already pretty close. Set the docking port as the target and use the RCS. I really should have closed the maneuver note out yet, but I forgot. And I know you can't really see the nav ball because I'm in the wrong scene in OBS, accidentally turning on the solar panels of the truss. I shut those down manually. But I have all the maneuvering, so now I'm heading directly for that docking port. And my plan had been once here to detach the big mining ship and grab that truss and put it to the front of the station. But as you can see, I keep clicking the undock button and they are not undocking, and that is because I have stuck docking ports. And that's pretty much where this episode's going to end, because there's no way to fix that from here. So, if you haven't done so and you're having this issue, download the KML utility, and that will help you fix that. So we're going to go ahead and stop right here, since there's not really anything else I can do. So, check us out next time. Hit those buttons, and I'll see you later.